Who you become often begins with the version of yourself you are willing to believe in. You may have learned to survive by making yourself small, so you step back before anyone asks. Failure feels familiar, so success makes you uneasy. Even healthy love can feel dangerous when distance feels safer. A life becomes a road made by repeated footsteps. You believe the same things, make the same choices, and receive familiar results. Repetition rarely calls itself repetition. It arrives as caution, clarity, or maturity. Before opportunity reaches you, you already know why it will fail. So many things end inside you before they ever begin outside you. Change begins when you see the pattern. The old version of you never led toward freedom. It only returned you to what was familiar. You live not only in reality, but in your interpretation of it. Expect betrayal, and you notice distance first. Feel unworthy of wealth, and opportunity makes you tense. Believe life requires struggle, and easier paths become invisible. When belief shifts, the world may not change at once. First, the part pulling you back begins to loosen. Welcome back to Momentum Arc, a space for inner exploration and spiritual growth. Your likes, comments, subscriptions, and super thanks help this work travel farther. They may help another person recognize the belief quietly shaping their life. Wayne Dyer was one of America's best-known writers and speakers on self-development and spiritual growth. His work kept returning to one unsettling question: how much of your life is shaped before any result appears? Many psychological approaches trace present struggles to trauma, defenses, and early conditioning. Dyer did not deny those forces, but he focused on the present. He asked how your view of yourself limits the life you allow yourself to approach. In his book, You'll See It When You Believe It, he reversed a familiar assumption. We usually think we must see proof before we can believe. Dyer suggested that belief often comes first. Then we read reality through what we already expect to find. Belief works like a system of perception. It decides what grows louder and what disappears into the background. Two people can stand in the same world and experience very different realities. One notices possibility, the other notices risk. One feels warmth in a conversation, the other searches for coldness. One sees an opening, the other feels only familiar anxiety. If you have long believed that you are unworthy, receiving can feel unsafe. If you believe you cannot keep good things, you may hesitate when they arrive. If you expect loss, you may recreate scarcity before anything has actually been taken away. This is the invisible gravity of belief. It pulls you toward choices that confirm the position you already hold. The pull is quiet, yet it shapes what you approach, what you avoid, and what you allow yourself to keep. Someone who doubts they deserve kindness may feel every cold response, yet question every gesture of warmth. Someone who believes money cannot stay may create new drains as income rises. If happiness always carries a price, improvement itself can trigger anxiety. The filter keeps selecting evidence that proves it was right. Soon, perception begins to look like reality itself. That is why belief can be difficult to see. It changes judgment, choice, and direction before the final result appears. What shapes a life is not only what the world offers, it is also what the inner world permits. A new possibility may be present, but you still need an inner place where it is allowed to land. If belief draws the boundary of what you can see, then what is belief itself? It is not a sentence repeated into a mirror. It is not an anxious prayer demanding a guarantee. When the mind keeps insisting that something must happen, the deeper self may still be afraid it will not. A phrase can remain in the voice without reaching the body. You can speak of abundance while treating every expense as a threat. You can say you are loved while preparing to be left. Dyer's deeper point was not that words are useless. It was that interpretation gives an event its lasting direction. The event matters, but the meaning you assign to it decides what follows. A relationship grows distant. One person reads it as another abandonment. Another sees that both people have stopped meeting honestly. A plan fails. One person hears a final verdict. Another sees what must change next time. The event matters, but it does not decide the conclusion. The difference is not forced positivity. It is the inner position from which reality is received. From a victim's position, every disturbance can feel personal. From a position of agency, the same disturbance can become correction or redirection. Stable belief does not always change the situation immediately. It changes your relationship with the situation. Your choices become less frantic. Your voice becomes clearer. Your body does not grip every uncertain moment so tightly. Belief, then, is not one dramatic declaration. It is a repeated choice about who you are becoming. Each response strengthens a position. Over time, that position becomes the ground beneath your life. To build a steadier belief, you eventually have to face the past. The brain uses experience to predict danger. When a new reality appears, it searches the past for guidance. Old failure becomes a warning. Betrayal becomes a forecast. Childhood scarcity becomes an alarm whenever money feels uncertain. The past does not need to repeat itself to control the present. It only needs to remain your strongest explanation. What keeps you trapped is not only what happened, it is what you came to believe that experience said about you. A wound becomes an identity. One failure becomes proof that the road is closed. A season of scarcity becomes a reason to panic whenever prosperity comes near. Then the past moves from memory into instinct. You pull back without deciding to. You confirm the old story without noticing. You leave before rejection, spend before loss, or quit before uncertainty can expose you. You want a new life, but believe you must be completely ready first. You need more healing, protection, or one final sign. The desire is real, but the right to begin is always postponed. What happened is real, but what it means for your life today is not fixed. Rewriting memory does not erase the event. It loosens the conclusion that the event was allowed to make about you. The shift begins when you stop using your most painful experience as your only way of knowing yourself. You may still carry the memory, but the memory no longer gets to speak for your entire future. This is also where forgiveness enters. Forgiveness does not excuse harm or force you to feel peaceful. It loosens the story that keeps you imprisoned inside the injury. The past remains, but it no longer gets to judge today. Belief is not distorted only by doubt. It can also be distorted by attachment to an outcome. You may sincerely believe in a possibility and still demand that it appear now. Desire is not the problem. The trouble begins when the result must arrive in one form, on one schedule, before you can feel secure. Money becomes proof that you are worthy. A relationship becomes the answer to emptiness. Success becomes the verdict on your entire life. The more weight the result carries, the more fear enters the belief. On the surface, you are waiting. Inside, you keep asking why it has not happened. That grip pulls you from the present and the action it requires. Attachment often disguises itself as belief. It looks like persistence, but it feels like interrogation. It asks life for a guarantee and measures your worth through the speed of a result. Steady belief does something different. It refuses to make the outcome the only judge of your inner direction. You can care deeply about what you want. You can also stop using delay as proof that you have been rejected. This is the paradox. The harder you grasp for immediate confirmation, the less stable belief becomes. Urgency says that you do not yet trust what you claim to trust. What breaks belief is often not reality. It is turning not yet into never. Belief gains weight when the result no longer has to prove your value. You are still moving toward what matters, but you are no longer asking the future to prove that you are worthy today. When the past no longer rules today, belief begins to change form. When the outcome no longer judges you, belief becomes more than language. It becomes an inner order. The first change may not happen in the world. It may happen in your ability to keep a new possibility. Many people do not lack opportunity. They lack the capacity to receive it without retreating. Money arrives and suspicion rises. Love deepens and distance returns. Life becomes gentler, yet you find your way back to the old struggle. Some people reach the doorway of a new life and quietly send themselves back. An old voice says, "This won't last. The relationship will fall apart. The money will disappear." So they leave first, before life has a chance to take anything away. Belief gains weight when you stop rushing to return what has arrived. You let an opportunity remain long enough to understand it. You stay present when a relationship enters an unfamiliar season. You let financial ease remain without immediately finding a reason to fear it. This does not mean ignoring risk. It means giving possibility more room than your old defenses once allowed. Then the outer world finally has somewhere to land. An opportunity you once missed becomes visible. A choice that once triggered retreat can now remain open. A vision that once collapsed under doubt can stay with you. The world may not have suddenly chosen you. Your inner position has become steady enough to hold what once slipped away. Dyer's insight was quiet in this way. Belief does not need to announce itself loudly. It does not need constant confirmation. Before the result appears, you do not betray yourself or push possibility away. This is not fantasy. It is the capacity to receive the life you have wanted without running back to the old road. The hardest part of change is often the time before change becomes visible. You may know that your direction is different. You may feel more capable than before, yet the evidence has not arrived. Your work, relationships, and circumstances may still look the same. No one else can see that an old inner order has begun to lose its authority. This is often how the future first appears. It does not arrive as a result. It arrives as a choice. You stop asking for love in the places that taught you to beg. You stop exhausting yourself just to feel safe. You stop translating every delay as proof that life has refused you. From the outside, very little may have changed. Inside, the road is being redrawn. To witness the future is to stand behind a life no one else can see. You hold a place for that self before evidence arrives. You do not return to the old version simply because it still matches the evidence around you. The bills still speak. Coldness still speaks. Silence and delay still speak. Each one tries to pull you back toward the conclusion you already know. Many lives change here. There is no applause and nothing has fully arrived. Change takes hold when you refuse to abandon what has begun inside you simply because it remains unseen. In the end, you are not waiting only for a result. You are becoming the person who no longer turns back. When that inner position can stand, the future is no longer somewhere far away. It has already begun in the choices you are making today.